The World Wide Web is a global collection of documents, images, multimedia, applications, and other resources, logically interrelated by hyperlinks and referenced with uniform resource identifiers, URIs, which provide a global system of named references. URIs symbolically identify services, web servers, databases, and the documents and resources that they can provide. Hypertext Transfer Protocol, HTTP, is the main access protocol of the World Wide Web. Web services also use HTTP for communication between software systems for information transfer, sharing and exchanging business data and logistics, and is one of many languages or protocols that can be used for communication on the Internet. World Wide Web browser software, such as Microsoft's Internet Explorer/Edge, Mozilla Firefox, Opera, Apple Safari, and Google Chrome, enable users to navigate from one web page to another via the hyperlinks embedded in the documents. These documents may also contain any combination of computer data, including graphics, sounds, text, video, multimedia, and interactive content that runs while the user is interacting with the page. Client-side software can include animations, games, office applications, and scientific demonstrations. Through keyword-driven internet research using search engines like Yahoo, Bing, and Google, users worldwide have easy, instant access to a vast and diverse amount of online information. Compared to printed media, books, encyclopedias, and traditional libraries, the World Wide Web has enabled the decentralization of information on a large scale. The web has enabled individuals and organizations to publish ideas and information to a potentially large audience online at greatly reduced expense and time delay. Publishing a web page, a blog, or building a website involves little initial cost, and many cost-free services are available. However, publishing and maintaining large, professional websites with attractive, diverse, and up-to-date information is still a difficult and expensive proposition. Many individuals and some companies and groups use weblogs or blogs, which are largely used as easily updatable online diaries. Some commercial organizations encourage staff to communicate advice in their areas of specialization in the hope that visitors will be impressed by the expert knowledge and free information, and be attracted to the corporation as a result. Advertising on popular web pages can be lucrative, and e-commerce, which is the sale of products and services directly via the web, continues to grow. Online advertising is a form of marketing and advertising which uses the Internet to deliver promotional marketing messages to consumers. It includes email marketing, search engine marketing, SEM, social media marketing, many types of display advertising, including web banner advertising, and mobile advertising. In 2011, Internet advertising revenues in the United States surpassed those of cable television and nearly exceeded those of broadcast television. Many common online advertising practices are controversial and increasingly subject to regulation. When the web developed in the 1990s, a typical web page was stored in completed form on a web server, formatted in HTML, ready for transmission to a web browser in response to a request. Over time, the process of creating and serving web pages has become dynamic, creating a flexible design, layout, and content. Websites are often created using content management software with, initially, very little content. Contributors to these systems, who may be paid staff, members of an organization, or the public, fill underlying databases with content using editing pages designed for that purpose, while casual visitors view and read this content in HTML form. There may or may not be editorial, approval, and security systems built into the process of taking newly entered content and making it available to the target visitors. The World Wide Web, WWW, commonly known as the web, is an information system that enables information sharing over the Internet through user-friendly ways meant to appeal to users beyond IT specialists and hobbyists. It allows documents and other web resources to be accessed over the Internet according to specific rules of the Hypertext Transfer Protocol, HTTP. Documents and downloadable media are made available to the network through web servers and can be accessed by programs such as web browsers. Servers and resources on the World Wide Web are identified and located through character strings called Uniform Resource Locators, URLs. The original and still very common document type is a web page formatted in hypertext markup language, HTML. This markup language supports plain text, images, embedded video and audio contents, and scripts, short programs, that implement complex user interaction. The HTML language also supports hyperlinks, embedded URLs, which provide immediate access to other web resources. Web navigation, or web surfing, is the common practice of following such hyperlinks across multiple websites. Web applications are web pages that function as application software. The information in the web is transferred across the Internet using the Hypertext Transfer Protocol, HTTP. Multiple web resources with a common theme and usually a common domain name make up a website. A single web server may provide multiple websites, while some websites, especially the most popular ones, may be provided by multiple servers. Website content is provided by a myriad of companies, organizations, government agencies, and individual users, and comprises an enormous amount of educational, entertainment, commercial, and government information. The World Wide Web has become the world's dominant information systems platform. It is the primary tool billions of people worldwide use to interact with the Internet. The web was invented by Tim Berners-Lee at CERN in 1989 and opened to the public in 1991. It was conceived as a universal linked information system. The web was invented by English computer scientist Tim Berners-Lee while working at CERN. He was motivated by the problem of storing, updating, and finding documents and data files in that large and constantly changing organization, as well as distributing them to collaborators outside CERN. The terms Internet and World Wide Web are often used without much distinction. However, the two terms do not mean the same thing. The Internet is a global system of computer networks interconnected through telecommunications and optical networking. In contrast, the World Wide Web is a global collection of documents and other resources, linked by hyperlinks and URLs. Web resources are accessed using HTTP or HTTPS, which are application-level Internet protocols that use the Internet's transport protocols. Viewing a web page on the World Wide Web normally begins either by typing the URL of the page into a web browser or by following a hyperlink to that page or resource. The web browser then initiates a series of background communication messages to fetch and display the requested page. In the 1990s, using a browser to view web pages and to move from one web page to another through hyperlinks came to be known as browsing, web surfing, after-channel surfing, or navigating the web. Early studies of this new behavior investigated user patterns in using web browsers. One study, for example, found 5 user patterns: exploratory surfing, window surfing, evolved surfing, bounded navigation, and targeted navigation. A web page, also written as web page, is a document that is suitable for the World Wide Web and web browsers. A web browser displays a web page on a monitor or mobile device. The term web page usually refers to what is visible, but may also refer to the contents of the computer file itself, which is usually a text file containing hypertext written in HTML or a comparable markup language. Typical web pages provide hypertext for browsing to other web pages via hyperlinks, often referred to as links. Web browsers will frequently have to access multiple web resource elements, such as reading style sheets, scripts, and images, while presenting each web page. On a network, a web browser can retrieve a web page from a remote web server. The web server may restrict access to a private network such as a corporate intranet. The web browser uses the Hypertext Transfer Protocol, HTTP, to make such requests to the web server. A static web page is delivered exactly as stored, as web content in the web server's file system. In contrast, a dynamic web page is generated by a web application, usually driven by server-side software. Dynamic web pages are used when each user may require completely different information, for example, bank websites, web email, etc. A static web page, sometimes called a flat page/stationary page, is a web page that is delivered to the user exactly as stored, in contrast to dynamic web pages which are generated by a web application. Consequently, a static web page displays the same information for all users, from all contexts, subject to modern capabilities of a web server to negotiate content type or language of the document where such versions are available, and the server is configured to do so. A server-side dynamic web page is a web page whose construction is controlled by an application server processing server-side scripts. In server-side scripting, parameters determine how the assembly of every new web page proceeds, including the setting up of more client-side processing. A website is a collection of related web resources including web pages, multimedia content, typically identified with a common domain name, and published on at least one web server. Notable examples are Wikipedia.org, Google.com, and Amazon.com. A website may be accessible via a public Internet Protocol, IP, network, such as the Internet, or a private local area network, LAN, by referencing a uniform resource locator, URL, that identifies the site. Websites can have many functions and can be used in various fashions. A website can be a personal website, a corporate website for a company, a government website, an organization website, etc. Websites are typically dedicated to a particular topic or purpose, ranging from entertainment and social networking to providing news and education. All publicly accessible websites collectively constitute the World Wide Web, while private websites, such as a company's website for its employees, are typically a part of an intranet. Web pages, which are the building blocks of websites, are documents, typically composed in plain text interspersed with formatting instructions of hypertext markup language, HTML, XHTML. They may incorporate elements from other websites with suitable markup anchors. Web pages are accessed and transported with the Hypertext Transfer Protocol, HTTP, which may optionally employ encryption, HTTP Secure, HTTPS, to provide security and privacy for the user. The user's application, often a web browser, renders the page content according to its HTML markup instructions onto a display terminal. Hyperlinking between web pages conveys to the reader the site structure and guides the navigation of the site, which often starts with a home page containing a directory of the site web content. Some websites require user registration or subscription to access content. Examples of subscription websites include many business sites, news websites, academic journal websites, gaming websites, file-sharing websites, message boards, web-based email, social networking websites, websites providing real-time price quotations for different types of markets, as well as sites providing various other services. End users can access websites on a range of devices, including desktop and laptop computers, tablet computers, smartphones and smart TVs. A web browser, commonly referred to as a browser, is a software user agent for accessing information on the World Wide Web. To connect to a website server and display its pages, a user needs to have a web browser program. This is the program that the user runs to download, format, and display a web page on the user's computer. In addition to allowing users to find, display, and move between web pages, a web browser will usually have features like keeping bookmarks, recording history, managing cookies, see below, and home pages, and may have facilities for recording passwords for logging into websites. The most popular browsers are Chrome, Firefox, Safari, Internet Explorer, and Edge. A web server is server software, or hardware dedicated to running said software, that can satisfy World Wide Web client requests. A web server can, in general, contain one or more websites. A web server processes incoming network requests over HTTP and several other related protocols. The primary function of a web server is to store, process and deliver web pages to clients. The communication between client and server takes place using the Hypertext Transfer Protocol, HTTP. Pages delivered are most frequently HTML documents, which may include images, style sheets, and scripts in addition to the text content. A user agent, commonly a web browser or web crawler, initiates communication by making a request for a specific resource using HTTP, and the server responds with the content of that resource or an error message if unable to do so. The resource is typically a real file on the server's secondary storage, but this is not necessarily the case and depends on how the web server is implemented. While the primary function is to serve content, full implementation of HTTP also includes ways of receiving content from clients. This feature is used for submitting web forms, including uploading of files. A web cache is a server computer located either on the public internet or within an enterprise that stores recently accessed web pages to improve response time for users when the same content is requested within a certain time after the original request. Most web browsers also implement a browser cache by writing recently obtained data to a local data storage device. For criminals, the web has become a venue to spread malware and engage in a range of cybercrimes, including, but not limited to, identity theft, fraud, espionage, and intelligence gathering. Web-based vulnerabilities now outnumber traditional computer security concerns, and as measured by Google, about 1 in 10 web pages may contain malicious code. Most web-based attacks take place on legitimate websites, and most, as measured by Sophos, are hosted in the United States, China, and Russia. The most common of all malware threats is SQL injection attacks against websites. Every time a client requests a web page, the server can identify the request's IP address. Web servers usually log IP addresses in a log file. Also, unless set not to do so, most web browsers record requested web pages in a viewable history feature, and usually cache much of the content locally. Unless the server-browser communication uses HTTPS encryption, web requests and responses travel in plain text across the Internet and can be viewed, recorded, and cached by intermediate systems. Another way to hide personally identifiable information is by using a virtual private network. A VPN encrypts online traffic and masks the original IP address, lowering the chance of user identification. There are methods for accessing the web in alternative mediums and formats to facilitate use by individuals with disabilities. These disabilities may be visual, auditory, physical, speech-related, cognitive, neurological, or some combination. Accessibility features also help people with temporary disabilities, like a broken arm, or aging users as their abilities change. The web is receiving information as well as providing information and interacting with society. The World Wide Web Consortium claims that it is essential that the web be accessible, so it can provide equal access and equal opportunity to people with disabilities. Thank you for watching this video.